Good afternoon. Our teaching today is called Buddha's Relationship Column, and I'll explain to you in a minute what that means. My teacher, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, gave a wonderful teaching one day about how it's so important for us to strengthen our vertical relationship with God in order to improve and do well with our human relationships, which are on the horizontal axis of the cross. And today, as I was engaged in meditation, I was thinking back upon various relationships that I've had over time and space. And I was thinking about the qualities that, for me, defined what I would consider an attractive human relationship. And I know that as I read these qualities to you, because I did make an inventory and write them down, a lot of people will relate because these are many qualities that you find on talk shows and in magazines and books that are self-help books and relationship books, and it's what people are always looking for in a human relationship with peers if you're younger, or with a spouse, or a significant other if you're older. And so these are not something to basically deny, but something to understand on a deeper level. So I'm going to go ahead and read these now. The perfect human love. The person makes us feel beautiful or handsome and timeless, empowered and supported, appreciated and liked, connected with laughter, and the relationship has a mystical promise and a soul attraction. Now, having written this list, I had to look at the various relationships in my life that have been difficult over time and space, and basically look at the elements of those relationships that counter the first list with a heavy-handed negativity. And I realized as I was writing these words down that this describes so many people in their relationship challenges, from children to adults. Feeling unwanted or aging, excluded and thwarted, taken for granted and bullied, codependent and imprisoned, alone and bereft. And so then, as I was pondering this list, my higher self was goading me to write down the next level, which is, how do you connect in your vertical relationship with God so that you can literally transcend these negative aspects? These are the words. Divine selfhood is eternal and glorious. Divine selfhood is guiding and protecting. Divine selfhood is unique and irreplaceable. Divine selfhood is joy and miracles. Divine selfhood is manifestation in action. So I was sharing these with a friend this morning, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, and of course I was doing the Vipassana meditation of the Buddha as I was writing these down, and it dawned on me, this list, these 3 columns, are the story of Gautama Buddha. You see, the first list here, of feeling beautiful and timeless and empowered and supported and appreciated and liked and connected in laughter and all of these things, is the story of when Gautama is in the palace where he's raised by his father and has a beautiful wife and a young infant son and lots of friends and lots of supporters and all of the material wealth that he needs. And all of a sudden he goes out beyond the palace walls, and to his surprise, he encounters sin, disease, death. He encounters old age. He encounters suffering. And he is all of a sudden confronted with the second list, feeling unwanted and aging and excluded and thwarted and taken for granted and bullied, codependent, imprisoned, alone, and bereft. And so he realizes that the only way to break this curse or this spell that is the Gog and Magog of human love and human hate in our human relationships, he has to transcend the horizontal axis and move into the vertical axis. He has to go and find this vertical axis as his own communion with God that will ultimately bring liberation to all mankind. And so he goes out into the forest, becomes an ascetic, and through meditation, including this Vipassana technique over many years, he finds the middle way between the two polarities, and he finds the enlightenment of the Buddha that brings this liberation that basically frees us from these levels of attraction and repulsion in our life. It's all part of the Vipassana technique that Goenka teaches. And so when he reaches this enlightenment stage, he realizes that this divine selfhood is eternal and glorious, is guiding and protecting, is unique and irreplaceable, is joy and miracles, and is manifestation and action. And he realizes that through this divine selfhood is the liberation that mankind needs. Before reaching this, he is also confronted with the same equation, not only in his outer circumstances, but on inner levels. Because first, Mara brings him the 5 daughters, which are the pleasures of the senses and the attractions of the senses. So he has to confront these. Then Mara brings him the armies that attack him. And finally his own not self. And when he confronts that and is victorious, he is able to touch the earth and say, "The earth is my witness." Om Ahum Vajra Guru Padme Siddhi Hum is the mantra for that. And so it's so key to understand this, because he has this initiation on the outer, he has this initiation on the inner. And ultimately, it is through this place of higher oneness on the vertical axis that then he goes back into the world and teaches and becomes the Buddha. Now, we have all, in time and space, through many incarnations, have experienced all of these various human relationships and all of the various qualities that I read and many others. And there comes a point in the journey of the soul where it's time for us to move into this vertical relationship that ultimately will bring on our Christhood, our Buddhahood, and our permanent reunion with God. And so we're following in the footsteps of these great beings of light. And from that perspective, it is possible to have a beautiful relationship. Look at Jesus with Mary Magdalene. It's possible. But it is from a place of interdependence and no longer a place of codependence. That's the difference. And so we need to understand how important it is, and that the people who bring us the negatives in our life are not doing us, any more or less of a favor than those who bring us those positive human relationships. It's all part of the Gog and Magog, meaning that we don't want to condemn anymore those who have hurt us, or indulge in and pursue those who bring us the pleasures of the palace, right? Because we have to understand that even those who are the ones assigned, like Judas with Jesus, to bring him the worst case scenario of a relationship, it was still a role destined to play to propel him into his resurrection. And so our so-called enemies and the so-called difficult relationships in our lives are actually goads and propelling points that basically force us to leave the palace and force us to leave the vertical axis and move back into that force us to leave the horizontal axis and move back into that vertical axis. And so, with that in mind, I would like to read to you a few words from Khalil Gibran on love. When love beckons to you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep. And when his wings enfold you, yield to him, though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. And when he speaks to you, believe in him, though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so he is for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Like sheaves of corn, he gathers you unto himself. He threshes you to make you naked. He sifts you to free you from your husks. He grinds you to whiteness. He kneads you until you are pliant. And then he assigns you to his sacred fire, that you may become sacred bread for God's sacred feast. I would also like to share with you the words of the French author Saint-Exupéry in The Little Prince. He says, love is not looking in each other's eyes so much as looking in the same direction. And that direction is the vertical line, the higher self, this divine selfhood. Now, at the human level, there may be times, maybe a number of times, where we want to run back to the palace, right? And in those moments, perhaps we can remember the words that Saint Germain gave to us through the Shakespearean plays, Much Ado About Nothing, where he says, "Get thee to heaven, Beatrice, get thee to heaven." And so this concludes this teaching on Buddha's relationship column. Ultimately, it is the vertical column. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. Namaste.